Hey, what's up guys, Godstatus here. So today we're going to be doing a follow-up video to my Stylis is going to ruin Phantom Forces video because it kind of needs to be done. I wasn't asked by anyone directly to do this, however, I even offered the developers and they said it wasn't really needed unless I wanted to, and certain people that if they did request me to do this, I would have done it right away, never asked. So let's go over the first topic that everyone seems to be flipping out about that was misinformed quite a bit, and let's discuss it. The hypo/Arakan demotion. Now, demotion still isn't even the right word to use necessarily, but I have learned the main gist of the storyline as to how things led up to this and whatnot. What you guys need to understand is from an outside point of view, it looked like they were fired, and it looked like it was random and nobody knew anything about it, so it was misinformation. The term fired was thrown around a lot when it first happened, and obviously it wasn't the right term to use. We obviously could have had myself worded better, I could have had a little bit more info, blah blah blah. However, it was a spur of the moment decision to make the video, and it was kind of a last attempt for me to try to get some change in Stylis because I didn't think a lot of things were going the way that they should. These are my opinions, I think that things should have changed, blah blah blah. Thankfully, I've gotten into contact with a few of the devs, I've been directly talking to them, we've both expressed our sides, and we have talked about a lot of things. There's a lot I'm not allowed to say, and there's a lot that I won't say just for people's privacy reasons. Now, Hypo and Arakan were quote-unquote demoted. The reasons, like I said, I will not say why, because it is their personal information and it's confidential, and it is not my position to expose why they're removed or anything about it. However, the term fired was not the right one to use. They were not fired. There was a lot that led up to this, and there was a lot that was already known in the background that obviously a lot of people didn't know about, including myself. From an outsider's point of view, it looked like he was just randomly removed and instantly taken away, which we assumed fired. Was I wrong? Yes. Do I admit it's misinformation? Yes. I've admitted this publicly throughout many discords multiple times, however, I'm making the video to address things like this because people seem to think that I twisted this with malicious intent, which I didn't. And I will show a screenshot here from Arakan, and I did get his approval to show these screenshots where I asked him how he felt about it, and he said I did the research that I had, and I answered with the research that I had, and that's what matters. I dug as much as I can, and that's all that really could be done. And he said the fact that I'm following up, including screenshots where misinformation is corrected, proves that, regardless of whether it benefit the game or not. That's something very important that I would like to show, because once this did happen, Axis reached out to me and showed that he wanted to talk to me. If I can go ahead and bring this up quickly, I will put a picture on where you can see that Axis said, hey, can you get the chance, or when you get the chance, can you accept my friend request? And I did, and we spoke, and I brought up points with him that really mattered to me, and we talked things out. One of the first things I said, and obviously you guys didn't see this because this was way before anything was shown, I pointed out right away that there was no need for him to apologize to me about anything, and I understood that my video came off bad and was taken in an offensive way when it wasn't intended to be that way. However, a lot of people did see me as going out for a personal attack, which I didn't. If you guys know anything about the Haka situation from like a year or two ago, and I won't name anything and I won't explain it more than I need to, Haka was name dropped at one point and he was harassed for months. When I first mentioned the entire situation and my thoughts on Stylis during a live stream, people spammed to know who I was talking about, and they said they were going to do a ton of things to them. That's not what I want. If I wanted to personally attack someone, I could have. I very easily could have name dropped, and I don't need to go out of my way to not have him be talked about in my Discord or on the video as much as possible, but I do. My point was not to attack anyone, it was not to harass anyone. I don't think that just because I don't agree with him, he should be harassed, and I don't think that anyone should be harassed for that. I still stand by the points that I made in certain things, but let me explain everything throughout the video. As you could show here, I'll put a screenshot up where I said I didn't want the person to be harassed, and whether you take my word for it or not, I do genuinely care about what is going on, and I want to see PF change in a positive manner. I'm actively removing all the comments that mention the person's name, anything from my Discord, etc. So I'm going to show you Axis's response, or Axis's first message to me that led up to that reply. He said, hey, thanks for accepting it. I want to say several things. First, I'm very sorry that people have come to you harassing you to remove your video. I hope that has not caused too much discomfort. Second, thank you for making the video. It is helpful to know what the community thinks from your perspective. We are making changes based on your video. Now, just because I said things in the video does not mean changes are going to be made just because I said them. I'm just a kid with a YouTube channel. I can say my opinion on there however I want, and however it is perceived is how it is perceived. They do not need to act on anything I stated, nor do they need to make any changes based on my opinion. My opinions are just my opinion. They can make their own, they can run their company and their game how they would want. I do want to say, however, we did not fire Hypo and Arakan, as I just explained. There was a lot that went into it. They were not fired. Fired was the wrong term to use, and I apologize for that. It was a spur of the moment, kind of passionate video of just me being upset about a lot of things. Also, the movement system's not for Phantom Forces. I did not know that. When you go to the Stylis Studios Discord server, if any of you are in there, when you go to announcements, Axis Angle posted a video, Axis Angle posted a link saying, no Roblox physics movement testing, tell me what you think about how moving feels. As Billy Kerr pointing in her video, when you go to that place, it is on a PF map, crane site to be exact. Could you not think that the the movement system was for Phantom Forces? It was on a PF map. It seemed like it. It was released in the Stylis Studios Discord server where everything's about Phantom Forces. That's where I got my view on it, and that's why I said it. Obviously, that was wrong, and again, I do apologize for that, but that's how it looked from an outside point of view, and in my opinion, was a lack of communication on both sides. Could I have asked more about it? Yes. Did I think he would have responded at the time? Maybe not. However, I could have dug more, and that's understandable. When you do look at the video, and when you look at the screenshot, it looked like it was for Phantom Forces. If you went into the game, it was on a PF map. That's why I assumed that. It's an assumption, obviously it was wrong. He also said he pushed a small change that potentially could fix hit verification problems, which are in the test place. I've yet to test out too much, however, they are working on it. Not to mention that when all this was brought up, people seem to think that just because out of nowhere they released the dev statement about the hit registration, people are kind of arguing that it wasn't because of me, it was because they knew about it. I'm going to show a screenshot where Axis said that he didn't know how bad it was until recently. He wasn't aware of how bad it truly was. He left someone else to be in charge of it, but that person's also busy. They have other things to do. And then my main concern was that it felt like the community was not being heard because we had put out all these complaints, and these complaints weren't being addressed in a public forum. Yes, there was very random every now and then on the test place and sometimes the main game, like, oh, hit registration attempt fix or something. However, nothing truly changed and it never fully got fixed. So when we constantly complained about it and things like that, it seemed like we were ignored and nothing public was ever said. As admitted by Axis and Lido, again, I don't have screenshots, communication was not the best on either parts, where I could have tried to dig a little bit more, or they could have been more communicative with the public, communicative, if that's the right word. However, it didn't happen, and that's how we perceived it. That's how a lot of my friends perceived it. That's how a lot of people I know in the community perceived. We saw it as we were kind of being ignored, and that the problem was being ignored. Even though things were posted every now and then, the problem never seemed to go away, so it felt like we weren't heard. At the end of the day, it was miscommunication on both parts. There's a fault on the community, there's a fault on the developers, and there's no one to truly blame at the end of the day. We all need to improve as a whole. However, I still do stand by the fact that I believe that the developers should be a lot more open with the public, and they should at least try to update the public on what's going on, because when things go left in the dark for a long time, it feels like we aren't getting the updates we want, and it feels like things are being ignored, as this is why this happened. Axis even does himself, he needs to work on being more interactive with the community, and I believe the community needs to be working on how we perceive the devs and how we go about handling things. I'm not happy that I had to make the video, and I'm not happy that I had to use my platform for it. I tried a lot to avoid that entirely. I waited for friends in the staff position who could push their way into things internally, try to get changes internally to happen. People ask why I brought up all the internal affair issues and the internal battling and things like that, and that's because at the end of the day, it does affect how the game comes out. If there's a lot of arguing going on, it affects a lot of updates. If people aren't happy, people might quit. We might lose a certain person in a certain position that does their job, and they might quit, and then maybe updates in that particular department might be a lot slower. It does affect the game as a whole, and that's why I wanted to discuss it. If you guys haven't realized yet, we have been trying for a very long time internally amongst staff members to try to get changes to come, and there's a lot of staff members who have been in the staff position for a long time that agree that change has been needed for a while, and there's only so much they have tried to do, and there's only so much they could do without the developers potentially stepping in and kind of laying down a solid line to follow. Now, again, I'm not trying to blame anyone here directly, and I'm not going to say any names directly, but there are a lot of people, like I said, who have been there for a long time that agree with a lot I said in my video about infighting and things like that. I stand by a lot of the things I said on my video. Whether you want to agree with me or not, that's fine. You're allowed to disagree with me. However, I fully believe some of the things I said were relatively accurate, and I do believe that things I said I am okay and I feel justified in standing by. Was there a lot of misinformation in certain parts? Yes. Was the Hypo and Arkin situation complete misinformation to a very large extent? Yes. Do I admit that? Of course I do. I knew I was wrong, and as soon as I spoke to Axis like I showed, I admitted I was wrong. Or at least I can show it now if I didn't show it already. But the point is, I knew I was wrong, and I'm making this follow-up video to show that I knew I was wrong. Another thing I would like to bring up again, because I did briefly mention it, however, I really need to push this for people to seem to understand it. People don't realize how much me hiding the person's name as much as I can seems to have an impact on things. 20,000 people watched that video. There's over 20,000 views right now, about 21,000. That means there's a lot of people who have seen it, and there's a lot of people who still don't know who I'm talking about, and I'm planning to keep it that way. I'm not going to name drop them here. I'm not going to name drop them in any video that I can. I'm going to do my best to stay away from it, because again, harassment is not what I want. At the end of the day, I want positive change, whether you would like to agree with that or not, and whether you see me as attacking someone. I'm bringing this up because people don't seem to realize that if I were to name drop him, he would have been harassed incredibly. It would have been 10 times worse than anything that he might have ever gotten, and it would have been a complete terrible, just overall environment to deal with. I didn't want harassment, and I hope you guys can see that. People are painting me out to be a complete villain here, and that I did this, and I twisted things for my own benefit, and I put out all this false information because it was to benefit me in some way or another. Let's get the facts straight here. Was I wrong on some things? Yes. Do I stand by my word on some things? Yes. Am I willing to admit that I was wrong on a lot of things? Yes. Did I try to attack anyone personally and out them publicly? No. I was called, and I quote, well, I can't really quote it because of like PG rules here. However, I was called some words by a few people, one being a staff member. I'm not going to out names, I'm not going to show screenshots, anything. But I was told that I was a terrible person for publicly outing someone and publicly attacked. Did I talk about the person? Yes. Did I mention his name? No. And I'm not going to mention his name here on out. Again, if I would have mentioned his name, he would have been harassed insanely, and that's not what I want, and I'm sorry that I need to keep repeating this, but people seem to think that I did things to benefit myself. Again, let's get this clear. I didn't benefit at all by this video. I made a lot of people upset, but I also made a lot of people come to terms with the fact that things are going on and we notice it. I also made a pretty decent impact, and the developers seeing that there are more troubles and they need to address them, and I also feel I did a decent impact on seeing that the developers need to communicate a lot more with the public. Will I take credit for everything? No. I made the video. Again, I'm not happy that I made it. I didn't ever want it to come to the point where I had to publicly out so many things because of me being upset with the game. However, when I see friends starting to quit, when I see people that have played the game for years starting to quit over the same problems that seem to go unfixed, I speak about them. I even mentioned it to Access, and I will show in here in a screenshot if I can. Whether it was Access or Lido, I'm not sure. However, I will show what I said. The fact that I didn't want to use my platform for this. I never wanted to publicly out all these things, and I'm not happy that I did. I really wish things would have been solved internally before I had to do this. However, a lot of staff, like I said earlier, agreed that this video was kind of needed. And they're glad that I was at least the person to do it, because I do have a general understanding of a lot that does go on. But again, take general with a grain of salt. There's obviously a lot of things that I don't know behind the scenes, as I can see with the Hypo and Arikan situation. I didn't know all the information, I put out misinformation, and I admit to that. But at the end of the day, I do have a general understanding of how a lot of things work, and I've been in the staff position, and I've seen how most of it functions. I've been there, I've seen it, I have friends who have staff, I have friends who are contributors, etc. I see how things go on, I hear complaints, I hear general just kind of rambling that, oh, there's issues again, or there's fighting again, blah, blah, blah. I don't get full details, however, I get the general gist that there are still problems going on, and there are problems that need to be addressed, and I brought up the ones that I've known of for a long time, even back when I was staff, over a year ago. Well, I resigned in like April, so it's been about 8 months or so, 9 months, whatever it is, 10. I don't really feel like mathing right now. Nonetheless, these problems have been going on for a long time. The developers admit that, the staff team admits that, a lot of people admit that. I brought this up because I felt like it was important for the people to know that what is going on and how things are kind of shambling down. Again, I put out this video, and within the past few days we have gotten a direct response from Shay, which I will talk about here in a few, and we got a direct dev statement about the hit registration. Two things that we haven't gotten in a very long time. Let me go over Shay's response quickly. So to get to Shay's statement, which I'll put up on the screen for you guys to read along with me, it starts off with, due to recent events, I feel like there's a need for me to publicly address this situation in the form of a longer post. There's a lot of misinformation and concern going around, perhaps mostly due to Godstatus' video on the matter, so I'd like to clear the air by giving mine and the rest of the devs' view on what has transpired recently. Fair enough. Like I said, I had misinformation. We've already spoken about that. He says that he wants to outline what went wrong in the past for things to get to this point. Having not acknowledged the value of what we have is wholly the fault of us. We want to make things right with the community. Communication is a big point that has been an issue for a long while now, us having become more and more disconnected as time goes on. This being an issue in the public's eye as of recently within our studio, we'll be taking steps to amend this concern. I'm willing to shine some light onto the issues that may have not been well covered. Obviously, communication is something I talked about. I feel like there's been a lack of that for the staff to dev communication, staff to public, etc. It's a major part of it. I feel as though, in my eyes, the fact that we felt ignored on a lot of things was a major point of why we got as ramped up as we did, or as ramped up as where I wanted to make a video about it because I was just upset about a lot of things and it felt like nothing was ever heard, and I felt like I had to abuse the power of an audience that I had to get my voice heard and multiple other people's voices heard. He goes on to state that communication among developers hasn't really been anything to gloat about either. Sometimes they turn into arguments and their goals not being met. Discussions taking quite a bit of time out of your schedules to handle quite minor and often petty disputes, often ending with us feeling as if we had lost control of the course in which the game was being taken. Understandable. I'm happy that they're opening up about things and they're discussing them. Nobody's perfect. As with the mistakes I made in the video, as with the mistakes they've made, as with the mistakes we have all made. Nobody is perfect at the end of the day, and I'm very happy they're addressing things like this. When they gave this response, I'll give my full opinions about it at the end, however, let's just continue. Arguments often revolved around trivial matters, sometimes more relevant topics such as game balance, sometimes unfortunately leading to accusations being thrown around, or simply refusing to cooperate with one another on simple tasks. Obviously, they don't give any direct examples for privacy and confidentiality reasons, however, like I said, there is infighting and things like that. Kind of backs up what I said to a certain extent. All this brings us to what happened at the end of January, the situation with Hypo and Arkin. We explained about it. Studio had infighting that led us to reevaluating where some of our developers stand community and teamwork wise. Lack of motivation and discussion ultimately led us to revoking their developer status and instead reclassifying them as contractors, which means they would be hired for pay if they were. Something which we discussed about to great length around October of last year, giving them about 3 or so months to get everything sorted for themselves beforehand. Although not news to the fellow devs, we can see how the removal as devs came as a surprise to the general audience. Like I explained, we didn't know any of this. It seemed as though they were randomly removed right away, and that's how we perceived it, and that's how I gave my reaction. Obviously, I was wrong on a lot of things. They knew about it, and sadly, it just wasn't publicly stated because it technically wasn't our business. However, we did notice, and we did kind of get upset about it. Again, I had a lot of misinformation. I hope that clears it up. He goes on to state that as of now, we're going to start improving our involvement in the community, this post being our first step in that direction. Having started with restructuring where we stand among ourselves as developers, we plan on addressing where contributors land in our development cycle, being more exact with what a role contributor has among us and perhaps the most important goal for us for the time being, all while maintaining support for development goals this month. Going forward, we want to be transparent with our work cycle, sharing what we can with the public. To accomplish this, we've decided on possibly creating both a Trello and a monthly blog, both of which would give you guys an insight as to what's going on within the studio. In conclusion, mistakes were made on everybody's account, and although we had quite a rough start to 2019, hopefully this year is just as good, if not better than 2018. So I'm going to give my views on it. At the end of this, I was happy that they're released. I'm glad that Shay addressed this, and I'm glad that he took the time personally to write this out and give it to the public. I definitely think that this was a step in the right direction, and I really do support of them possibly doing a monthly blog or something along those lines. I don't believe that we are looking for anything super detailed. However, it is a lot better to hear, hey, we're working on this, or hey, we heard your complaints about this, we are getting to it. That's a lot better than us making complaints and it seems like things are never heard or spoken about after. Even if a dev sees you talking about it in, let's say, the Discord, and they say, hey, we see that, blah, 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 we'll look at it, and then nothing is ever brought up again, it seems like you're being ignored past that point, or they say something to make you feel better. Even if a problem like, let's say, hit registration, which as I've come to learn is a lot harder of a problem than it seems. Hit registration as of right now is very wonky because if they fix the hit registration, they can make it absolutely perfect, but then it means aimbotters come back in way too high of a power. And that's where things come into play, and obviously I didn't know this. A lot of the people out there did not know this. We didn't know that if they fix hit registration, aimbotters would be unstoppable again, and now it all makes sense. So as of right now, they're attempting to find fixes, but at the end of the day, if we have to trade off bad hit registration for less hackers to constantly take over lobbies. It's the trade we gotta make. Am I happy about it? No. Do I wish there was a way to fix it? Of course. But if that's what needs to be done, that's what needs to be done. Obviously, I didn't know that. Do I still complain about hit registration? Yes. Does it still bother me? Yes. Does it still bother a lot of people? I'm sure it does. But at the end of the day, we do want the game to be run well. But if this is a sacrifice that needs to be made at the end of the day, and there's no possible fix that they can find without doing a complete rewrite of all Phantom Forces, it just might be what we're stuck with. Again, I'm not happy about it, but it is what. At the end of the day, I feel like Shay could have addressed a few more things throughout this. He addresses that they want to do more community interactive stuff and be more open with the public, which is good, but I feel like there definitely could be more, such as, you don't need necessarily a monthly blog, however, I would really support it and I'd be really happy if it did happen. Just simple, they have access to the Discord and they have access to announcements. If a major bug in the game comes up, just access announcements and just put in there, hey, we know about this bug, we're working on a fix. It'll take them 2 seconds to do it, and I feel like that would improve communication tenfold, just because it knows that, just because it shows that people are being heard and that they are addressing things, and you will know as time goes on what is happening. I think that's something pretty important for games like, let's say, League of Legends. Obviously a much larger company, however, let me use the example. When a bug comes out for a champion of League of Legends, or a character you play, they address it, they disable the person, and they put in everyone's client, there's been a bug with this person, we are looking into it. It lets everyone know that there is the bug, they know about it, and it's being addressed as soon as they can. I believe that's a lot of communication that goes a very long way. Even for a company that has millions of players every day, they go out of their way to make sure that they know that, hey, this is a bug that's happening and we are aware and we are working on it. I definitely think they should take that into account, maybe try doing that as well. However, if the monthly blog is all they're willing to do, that sounded really wrong. If the monthly blog is all they're able to do currently, I support it and I'm happy nonetheless. At the end of this, I'm really happy Shay took the time to write this. I believe it does settle a lot of things, and I believe that it does put into perspective a lot of what's going on and how they are at least publicly saying that they do want to make improvements and they do want to benefit everyone. They want to see the community go back to a better place, and they would like to fix things up and better everyone, and including themselves as a whole. So, time to summarize up my points throughout this video. First off, yes, I was wrong about Hypo/Erican, and I admit that. I had misinformation, it happens, and this just goes to show, do not take everything I say as 100% fact. I am wrong quite a bit usually. I still stand by a lot of things that I said, but I'll get to that in a second. I did not publicly try to out someone. I gave my opinions on a person, I didn't drop their name, I refused to drop their name, and I refuse to give the name to anyone who DMs me, and I don't allow people to post his name in the comments, blah blah blah. I did not try to have him attacked. If I wanted to, I very easily could have, and I hope you guys understand that. My intentions are still the same. I still want PF to improve. Whether you think I'm some kind of evil person, whether you think I'm doing all this to benefit myself somehow, or I'm twisting everything so you guys will believe me, I stated right off the bat, even though I said things in a matter-of-fact tone, stated right off the bat at the beginning of my video, that you should take what I say kind of with a grain of salt, because these are my opinions and these are my observations. Obviously, everything I said was not 100% correct, and obviously shows. I messed up, I had misinformation. It happens. Do not take everything I say as a 100% fact, and that's why I tell you to make your own opinions, your own observations, and I get how I kind of skewed people's behaviors and influenced their opinions as a whole, because I said things in a matter-of-fact tone. Even though I said on certain things I could be wrong, it still wasn't taken that way, and people tend to ignore that. Point is, take what I say with a grain of salt, and please always understand that these are my opinions, and unless I show screenshots of things, certain things I can't for confidentiality reasons, but in the future, let me try to show proof, and if I can't, I will tell you why I can't, and then you make your own opinion from there. Just because I say it does not mean it's 100% true, as we've saw and as you're learning, and it doesn't mean that I will always be right, and it doesn't mean that I always be right on my opinions. Again, it's my opinions, my observations. Just like Axis went to say, the fact that I'm going through and admitting my misinformations and I'm admitting that I did wrong things shows that I do just want the game to improve, and it wasn't to skew anyone's visions, and it wasn't to do anything for my own benefit. I report on the information that I had, and that's it. At the end of the day, I still stand by a lot of things I said. I stand by the fact that there's contributor infighting, I stand by a lot of the things I said on that specific person, and I stand by a lot of my opinions, and no, I do not apologize for me voicing my opinion. Just like I showed with Lido, just because it is my opinion, and just because it is my voice, I am not forced to do whatever the devs want. They cannot force me to do whatever they want. I can voice my opinion as I see fit, and that's the end of it. Just because you don't agree with my opinion doesn't mean I need to take my video down. Just because you don't agree with what I say doesn't mean that I'm doing this to benefit myself. At the end of the day, I voiced my concerns, I voiced my observations, and things are happening about it. The devs saw, they heard, they listened, and I'm not saying that this is all me, and I'm in no way, shape, or form claiming that I'm the first person to bring this up or anything, but I at least like to take somewhat of, I want to take some form of proudness, in a sense, the fact that they are now pushing this. I am proud in them. I'm proud at the fact that they are addressing things. I'm proud at the fact that they are admitting mistakes and that there has been faults going on and there has been problems pushed to the side for times, and they are now addressing them, and I'm happy about that. I'm happy they're being the upper person here. They didn't remove my content creator role. They didn't come attack me. The developers I spoke to, Access and Lido, were very nice about things. They spoke their opinions, I spoke mine. We just talked, and that's how it should have gone down, and that's how it did go down. I have nothing bad to say about Access and Lido. However, you guys don't really seem to take that. No matter what I say, it always seems to be victimized in one way or another. In no way am I a victim. In no way do I claim they are a victim. I don't think anyone's a victim here. I think we both made mistakes on both parts. We both admit to our mistakes, and we will move on and try to be better in the future. But at the end of the day, this is what I have to say about all this, and these are, again, my opinions, my observations. They didn't force me to make this video, nobody forced me to. Few people have asked me to, but they weren't people that have asked me that I really cared about their opinion, in all honesty, because if someone like, let's say, Hypo, after I made yesterday's video, if he directly messaged me and said, hey, would you mind making a video just clearing up the situation because people are bothering me about it, I gladly would have. And it's kind of the reason why I'm coming to do this now, because there is misinformation, and although I will admit if someone ever asks, like, hey, what is the full story on this, I will say, hey, I'm wrong, I said this wrong, and I've admitted it in the Stylis Discord, my private Discord, and DMs, etc., but making a video is probably the better choice for all this. Nonetheless, these are all the evidence I have out, screenshots of how Access feels about it, some screenshots from Lido, etc. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.